We've reached the top 3. And with the greatness of this trio, we have a lot to cover in this episode, so I don't want to waste any time. This is my personal ranking of the 12 Star Wars films, from my least favorite to my all-time favorite. This is the 4th and final part of the ranking series, celebrating the best of the Lucasfilm library. This is, for me, the essence of Star Wars. And this is Star Wars, Prototypes and Production.
From Coruscant to Tatooine, and every planet in between, Star Wars, Prototypes and Production, with your host, David Quinn.
Vader. It's a trap!
Yes, Master.
Whoa, we're gonna have company!
Have to stand and fight.
The more you tighten your grip, Tom, the more star systems will slip through your fingers.
I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father.
The Force will be with you, always.
Number 3, Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. By the time the original trilogy reached its final chapter, the cracks in production were beginning to show. George Lucas was on the verge of an intense burnout. Director Richard Marquand struggled with leading the shoot. Harrison Ford had essentially phoned in his performance, and the insertion of the Ewoks in the second half of the film caused a tonal shift that upset a segment of the audience. But to a child, the movie was an adventure-filled playground. Growing up as an 80s kid, the first Star Wars film I was able to see in theaters was Return of the Jedi. By the time it premiered in May of 1983, I was just old enough to not only appreciate the toys, but to appreciate the movie-going experience as well. A year earlier, my parents purchased my first Star Wars action figures for me. And leading up to Return of the Jedi, I had watched the previous 2 films on a near-endless loop at home. I remember seeing some of the promotional material for the Return of the Jedi toys where certain characters had been blacked out, as not to spoil their reveal before the film's release. And I think that was the first time I had been swept up in the anticipation of a film's premiere, even as a preschool-age fan. Return of the Jedi continued George Lucas's tradition of placing our heroes among strange worlds and among fascinating backdrops, igniting my imagination. The first of these memorable sequences occurs at Jabba's palace. The palace was a personal favorite of mine. It was reminiscent of the first film's cantina scene, in that it truly felt like an alien environment, featuring inhabitants and denizens we'd never seen on film or in any earthly story previously. Yakface, Jaquiel, Bib Fortuna, the Gamorrean guards, Klaatu, Barada, and Nikto, Squidhead, the Three-Eyed Rees, Cy Snoodles and the Max Rebo Band, Weequay, the Torture Droids 88 and EV-99, Salacious Crumb. These are just some of the unique creatures introduced to us at Jabba's palace. Jabba was oversized and vile, a monstrous villain who was in possession of one of our core rebels, frozen in carbonite. The fact that Han Solo was mounted on his wall like a painting made Jabba a true villain, and set the stage for an epic hero-led heist to save the smuggler. As a child, it was thrilling to see the sequence of events that the rebels had to go through in saving their friend. There was something magical about seeing Lando in his skiff-guard disguise, as I felt like I was part of the plan and was in on his secret. And the reveal that the bounty hunter with the alien voice and snout-like helmet who had captured Chewbacca was none other than Leia demonstrated this rescue mission was a team effort, and a creative one at that. When they were both caught and captured by Jabba after trying to rescue Han, it appeared that our heroes were in even more trouble. But seeing Luke enter the palace in his dark outfit and robe and manipulate Bib Fortuna and the guards immediately indicated that he had leveled up in his knowledge of the Force between films. Luke brought a sense of wonder and mystery to the early scenes, and the Force felt both magical and real. Luke faced another obstacle, this time through a trapdoor. The reveal of the Rancor was captivating enough for the story to be compelling, but not frightening enough to want to stop watching it as a young fan. The Rancor looked larger than any other creature I had seen at the time, and I remember loving that scene and acting it out with my friends, and then solely in the company of my own imagination. There were so many moments of tension and danger, so many ups and downs, that the defeat of Jabba and the destruction of the sail barge felt like an earned victory. That entire opening scene felt like a separate movie, one that I would revisit on an almost daily basis as a boy. The other new environment introduced in Return of the Jedi was the forest moon of Endor. There, Luke and Leia donned helmets and flew through the landscape at wild speeds on Imperial speeder bikes. The speeder bike scene was more dynamic than any space battle up to that point, and I and so many other boys and girls longed to join them on a speeder bike chase someday. Kenner's Ewok Village playset was the perfect way to recreate scenes from the movie. Whether it was getting caught in the Ewoks' capture net, or having Han roasting over an open fire, or swinging a boulder at an incoming stormtrooper or AT-ST walker, the film provided the toys with some thrilling moments. But within the thrills were some really impactful scenes, ones that have remained with me for decades. The passing of Yoda on Dagobah was likely the first time I had witnessed the death of a major character on screen. And while the cause was a full life lived at 900 years, it was still heartbreaking. And in a way, it made Luke's victory over the Emperor and the Empire even more rewarding, because he had to do it without the assistance of his two mentors. And the other moment that has never left me was Luke's decision not to give in to his anger during his battle with Darth Vader. By dropping his lightsaber and standing up to the Emperor, Luke avoided the pull to the dark side and chose his love for his father and the side of light, regardless of what would happen to him next. And that's a powerful thing. After slicing off Vader's mechanized hand in combat, Luke looks at his own artificially replaced hand, realizing that he is currently on the path that consumed his father. Luke's decision to end the fight is, according to Lucas, the ultimate victory for a Jedi, and it felt that way. It is also the moment that changes Vader's heart and allows him to return to the light side of the Force, sacrificing his life for his son while defeating the Emperor. Through the Star Wars trilogy, Lucas wanted to create something that would help to shape the moral center of a younger audience. And Luke's win was not just over Darth Vader and the Emperor, but was a moral one, in which he chose love and goodness in others over his anger and his impulses. That message has stayed with me throughout my life. It's caused me to look up to Luke and then to look at the situations in my life in which I'm standing at a crossroads. Of course, it's never been anything close to what Luke went through, but it's a universal message, one we can apply to many aspects of life. And that is where Star Wars shines the brightest and resonates most deeply. So yes, Return of the Jedi featured furry teddy bears running around in a forest and some lighter moments, which may have felt childish to teens and to older audiences. But for a child growing up in 1983, Return of the Jedi was a non-stop series of Christmas mornings, seemingly endless with the gifts it presented during the film's runtime and over the next few years. There was a feeling of joy it delivered, with a happy and satisfying ending for our protagonists. The characters, the film, the music, the toys, and the memorabilia continued the life cycle of the movie long after it left theaters. It made all of it exciting and worthwhile to be a Star Wars fan. Number 2. Episode 4, Star Wars: A New Hope. It's a miracle that the original Star Wars movie was ever made. Generally, a movie will be memorable if it has one or two special aspects to it. Maybe the lead actor or actress delivered an incredible performance, or it had a hit song that forever connected it with audiences. Or maybe it had a breakthrough in film techniques or in special effects. Or it had interesting designs, or a sharp humor, or notable action sequences, or quotable lines that moviegoers would recite, sometimes for months, years, or decades after the film left theaters. Star Wars had all of that and more. It began with George Lucas's idea to tell a modern fantasy tale, one comprised of the archetypes of literary classics. Throw in inspiration from the world religions and cultures, along with the hot rod days of his youth and science fiction serials like Flash Gordon, and Lucas had devised a fresh take on storytelling in the era of cinema. He wanted his story to not only inspire, but to teach. He wanted Star Wars to serve as a companion, a guide map for boys growing up in the 1970s. He wanted it to be a moral model for them as they faced the challenges of eventually becoming adults. There was good. There was evil. There was the Force. Lucas had a knack for breathing life into ideas. And he also had a knack for selecting the right people, whether it was through a honed sense of what he wanted, or just out of happenstance. But he made it happen. He spent years crafting the lore, defining the Jedi and the Sith, and the mysterious Force. Lucas established planets in the far corners of the galaxy, giving himself unexplored territory to conquer on celluloid. He invented Luke Skywalker, the nephew of a moisture farming family on Tatooine, and he imbued in Luke the aspirational spirit that dwells deeply in all of us. That feeling that something out there is waiting for us. That there's more to life for each of us. In a darker time, Lucas painted a picture of hope. He created 2 droids, a golden humanoid homage to the Art Deco designs of the 1920s film Metropolis, and a diminutive astromech that surprisingly looked both futuristic and antiquated. Lucas's dog Indiana became the inspiration for an 8-foot-tall Wookiee, the companion of the charismatic smuggler Han Solo. And Lucas gave us a princess that could hold her own among a team of men in Leia Organa. The chemistry between the cast has made it one of the best ensembles ever captured on film. Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher were perfect in their roles. And their memorable banter during their escapades still fuels rewatches of the movie almost 50 years later. But the heroes are only as strong as the challenges they face. And to make a captivating story come alive with tension, you need a good villain. And in Star Wars, Lucas gave us one of the greatest cinematic villains of all time. Darth Vader's dark presence was instantly recognizable, even from his silhouette. His control of the Force and his imposing, menacing stature, along with his iconic boom of a voice and breathing apparatus, caused audiences to either cower or to sit on the edges of their seats. And Vader's reign was even more magnified by the army of stormtroopers he commanded. So George Lucas nailed the heroes, and he nailed the villain. But that was only a fraction of Star Wars' success in 1977. Lucas populated the planet of Tatooine with creatures viewers had never seen before. Tusken Raiders and Banthas lived among the dunes. The Jawas hunted for items to sell, traveling in a massive sandcrawler. Lucas filled the cantina with a sense of danger, as various species intermingled among the dark corners of the tavern. Many of these creatures, planets, and ideas started as sketches, as concepts by generational artists like the legendary Ralph McQuarrie, John Mallow, and Joe Johnston. They helped Lucas and his team to envision what these new worlds and aliens would look like in an earthly filming environment. And their work is so powerful and so influential that their designs are still being used 50 years later in newer Star Wars stories. And it took a team of forward-thinking individuals to construct the means and the technology to give Star Wars its groundbreaking special effects, which revolutionized filmmaking. Through the team at Industrial Light and Magic, Star Wars ushered in a new era of storytelling on screen. There are films before Star Wars, and then there are films after Star Wars. Ask anyone who saw the movie in the opening weeks what it was like to experience the intensity and jaw-dropping reveal of a seemingly endless Star Destroyer overwhelm the screen. And Lucas went against the trend of using disco or the electronic music of the moment as a soundtrack for his film. Instead, he turned to a composer named John Williams to score the film. And Williams would conduct an orchestra in playing character and scene pieces that would become as popular and as iconic as the characters and scenes themselves. The use of a classic soundtrack felt fresh at the time, and is one of the reasons the music of Star Wars has remained timeless. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of people responsible for the success of Star Wars. The creativity they used and the work they did transformed the film into a franchise and extended the movie's relevance from a summer blockbuster to a 50-year franchise. The Millennium Falcon became the coolest vehicle in the galaxy. The glowing lightsaber became the weapon of choice for children around the world. And the Kenner toys activated millions of imaginations, continuing the saga through the action figures, the vehicles, and the playsets. Star Wars was not a happy accident. Instead, it was the result of a unique vision, the backbreaking work of a groundbreaking team, and a series of miracles. And it changed popular culture, cinema, storytelling, and many of our lives forever. Number 1. Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. On any given day, you can make the case that the number 1 Star Wars film of all time is Star Wars. And over the past few years, I've vacillated between it and its direct sequel, The Empire Strikes Back. In fact, in preparing this list, I went back and forth for a few weeks before making the decision to put Empire over Star Wars. But ultimately, The Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars film. I was born after Star Wars premiered in theaters. Unlike many fans and collectors, I did not get to experience the phenomenon of seeing it with the rest of the country for the very first time in May of 1977. By the time I was aware of the franchise, it was a little more than a year before Return of the Jedi. I was able to watch Star Wars and Empire back to back, without any waiting period in between. And while I loved the original, the sequel resonated with me like nothing else at the time. The Empire Strikes Back faced a seemingly impossible mission. How would George Lucas come close to capturing the lightning-in-a-bottle magic of Star Wars again? How could he continue the story without disappointing audiences who loved the first film, and had waited 3 years for the next one? And that's why I selected Empire over Star Wars. In my humble opinion as a longtime Star Wars fan, this was the rare case in which the sequel was better than the original. The story of Star Wars did 2 things really well. It introduced its main cast, and it set the stakes within the galaxy Lucas created. Because of the strong foundation set by the 77 film, Empire was able to do 2 other things really well. It raised those stakes, and it developed each of the characters in a meaningful way. The movie's opening story on Hoth lays the groundwork for what awaits the audience. Han is planning on leaving the rebellion to pay off a bounty debt. There's something between him and Leia, and it's strong enough that they can't stop snapping at one another. The next part of Luke's Force journey is revealed to him, and the Empire is arriving shortly to ambush all of them. Tension immediately ties the story together. Han and Chewbacca discover a probe droid that alerts Vader and the Empire to the Rebels' location. Luke enters into a horror movie of his own as he is attacked by a wampa, his whereabouts unknown to his friends. Breaking free of his captor and cutting off the creature's arm with his lightsaber, Luke stumbles out of the cave and into the snow. At that moment, before he succumbs to his injuries in the cold, the spirit of Obi-Wan appears to him and tells him that he needs to go to Dagobah to find the Jedi Master Yoda. Han challenges the Rebel commander's orders and leaves the base to find Luke. This is often overlooked, but it is so important to the story because it shows the connection the former smuggler has to his friends. And this is the second time Han saves Luke, with the first occurring during the Death Star trench run in the previous film. Han has been an older brother to Luke and has been there to protect him, but by the end of Empire, he will be the one that needs to be saved. These are just a few of the early moments, but they set an important tone for the rest of the film. Empire is darker, more substantive, and it doesn't waste a moment on screen. Every action and every line of dialogue matters. And remarkably, it doesn't feel too lean or too rushed at all. Instead, its pacing is perfect, giving time for the characters and plot points to develop, but never getting bogged down in the process. And each scene feels fresh and thrilling. The Battle of Hoth is sprawling, but we're able to experience it from multiple perspectives. There's the overall ground war waged between the rebel troops and the snowtroopers. We're then taken inside of the base as Han and Leia put aside their bickering long enough to join Chewbacca and 3PO in a race to get to the Millennium Falcon. And we see Luke pilot a snowspeeder as he takes on the massive AT-ATs with a tow cable, a lightsaber, and some well-placed explosives. It's a race against time, and a race against Vader. Han and company manage to escape to head to the rendezvous point, with Luke heading to Dagobah. This is the first time in the trilogy that our heroes truly separate, but it really works within the story. The Last Jedi tried to replicate this by sending the main characters on a series of side quests, but it failed where Empire succeeded. And I think that this is largely due to the fact that the separation in Empire not only felt logical given the film's setup, but gave its characters a purpose and growth within each of those stories. In The Empire Strikes Back, the story of Han and Leia is a true romance. Leia knows that Han is planning on leaving once he brings her to the rendezvous point, and the tension of their mutual attraction crackles in the cramped quarters of the Falcon. Like in Star Wars, Empire is elevated by the chemistry between Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford, and their banter not only provides moments of humor, but a moment of genuine vulnerability as they share a kiss in the cockpit before being interrupted by C-3PO. We are witnessing them falling for one another, and again, even as a child, it was thrilling. And that love story is at the center of a wild trip across the galaxy, backed by some of John Williams' most beautiful scores. Lucas and company put us in the midst of a chase through an asteroid field, in a cave that turns out to be the inside of a monstrous space slug, and a last-minute trip to see an old friend in a city among the clouds. And the story of Han and Leia is so compelling and so organic in its execution that it doesn't feel like a divergence from the main story. It feels like a true half of the main story. Before we get to the other main half, though, this is a good time to mention the 47-year phenomenon that is Boba Fett. If anything, I could see a number of fans making the case for Empire being the #1 Star Wars film simply for introducing the iconic bounty hunter. In many ways, Boba Fett was a blank canvas, a mysterious presence whose short but essential appearance within The Empire Strikes Back ignited young viewers' imaginations, creating a deep fascination with the villain. Fett featured an incredible design, one that's still idolized to this day. He's essentially the reason why we have shows like The Mandalorian. And from the 1980 film, we see him as the most efficient and shrewdest bounty hunter, able to figure out how to locate and capture Han and the Millennium Falcon, He has earned the trust of Vader, making him even more deadly, someone to be feared throughout the galaxy. And in a pop culture universe that is often defined by over-the-top designs and theatrics, Boba Fett is the prime example of the winning formula of less is more. But okay, back to the second half of the main story. If the theme of Han and Leia is love, this chapter of Luke's journey focuses on lessons. And these lessons are some of the most powerful ones found in any Star Wars film. Writer Lawrence Kasdan had Luke meet Yoda on Dagobah, where he would begin his training to defeat Darth Vader and to bring balance to the Force. And really, the entire movie hinged on the believability of Yoda as a living creature. If the puppeteers could not bring him to life in a convincing way, The Empire Strikes Back would have collapsed. It would have made Luke's arc feel silly and cartoonish, instead of profound and powerful. If not, the magical, mysterious force introduced in the previous film would not carry any weight. Luke's hero's journey would fall flat, and his eventual duel with Vader would not have the same effect. Lucasfilm needed to get Yoda right, or the franchise would have been just another sci-fi story with one really great movie. They were not only successful in making him a convincing character, but transformed Yoda into one of the most memorable and oft-quoted characters in cinema history. But the Yoda scenes were effective for a multitude of reasons. First, the way Lucas and the team introduced the Jedi Master was brilliant. By acting as a kooky, quirky eccentric, Yoda was able to see how Luke would treat him and would react to him. Yoda was testing Luke's patience, and was throwing off audiences initially to whom he was within the larger story. Once inside Yoda's hut, he reveals himself to Luke and to us through a conversation with the spirit of Obi-Wan. Yoda reverts from the cartoonish old hermit to a very serious, very stable creature that instantly commands authority and respect. It's a transformation in few words, and brings with it a mysticism that goes beyond the screen. In The Last Jedi, Luke tells Rey about the Force in a way that reads more like a car commercial than a profound moment. Under Luke's brief narrative plays a series of quick-cut images of nature reacting, and of the cycle of darkness and light. The entire training scene feels too brief to have much substance, and it is not delivered by somebody at peace with the Force, so it does not feel like wisdom being offered. In Empire, Yoda does not only explain parts of the Force with a resonant insight for Luke and the audience, but we see the evidence of the Force through the exercises and activities that Luke experiences with him. There is a beautiful moment as Luke travels along the swampy marsh with Yoda on his back, narrating this part of his journey. Luke questions Yoda as a student, and Yoda's succinct answers teach viewers along the way as well. We as the audience learn some important life lessons during this sequence. The first is that we should never judge a book by its cover, as the old idiom goes. Yoda was someone that Luke overlooked, and we likely did as well, due to his diminutive size, his strange appearance, and his age. Luke arrives on Dagobah looking for Yoda as any human would, searching for someone grand, and what a master should be in his eyes. Instead, Yoda teaches Luke to view the world through the perspective of the Force. And in a way, it is a lesson for us, to see things through a spiritual lens in our search for truth. When Yoda sends Luke into a cave that echoes elements of the dark side, it is a test to see how he responds to the dark side, and whether he is guided by his emotions. Once inside the cave, Luke encounters a vision of Darth Vader attacking him, and he responds by cutting off the villain's head. Vader's helmet explodes, revealing Luke's face beneath it, a warning that the dark side will consume him if he lets it. And it's also a brilliant, subtle hint at who Vader is. The final lesson is how we often limit our potential as people. Over time, Luke learns to move rocks with his mind, but when Yoda asks him to lift the X-Wing out of the swamp, Luke fails before he even tries to do it. In his mind, he cannot fathom lifting the X-Wing due to its size. He is limiting the power of the Force, and in doing so, reducing his own capabilities due to his lack of belief. Yoda, much smaller in stature, shows Luke that the impossible is possible through the Force, stripping away those mental boundaries that often hold us back. Luke is only in the presence of Yoda for a short time, but each moment is important. We not only feel like we get to experience the training with Luke, but that each lesson is earned. And the wisdom shared during that time will not only help Luke in the final film, but they are true life lessons many of us have applied to our own lives throughout the decades. The scenes on Bespin continue the drama and thrill that is the essence of The Empire Strikes Back. It is the first time that Vader has truly captured and contained the rebels, and he begins to tighten the screws quickly and painfully. And it's there in Cloud City that we meet Lando Calrissian. Han is reunited with his old friend, the one from whom he won the Millennium Falcon. But as charming and as charismatic as Lando is, Leia doesn't fully trust him. As an audience, we want to believe that Lando is on the side of our heroes. And this makes the reveal that the Empire has forced his hand shocking and gripping. So much happens on Cloud City. 3PO enters a room and witnesses something he wasn't supposed to see. And he's blasted into parts that Chewbacca has to piece together. In private conversations, Leia and Han discuss Lando and his loyalties, and the two of them draw closer together in the process. After all, Leia can only trust Han at this point, and Han can only trust Leia. They are bound to one another through their feelings and through their experiences together. The dinner sequence, in that stark white room with Vader standing at the head of the table, instantly brings a sense of shock and dread. When Han is taken away to be tortured, one of the best things Irvin Kershner did was to not show what happens to him, only the final result. Our imaginations often fill in the gaps, making the scene even more terrifying. And then we get to what I believe is one of the greatest sets ever created for film. The carbon freezing chamber wasn't just a chamber. It was a stylized backdrop, a work of art. Think about it for a moment. Every photo from that sequence looks more like a painting. The room is effectively lit with the complementary colors blue and orange. They intensify the visuals, with the orange tones and the surrounding plumes of vapor adding almost a horror-like quality to the moment. It is both striking and overwhelming, and it succeeds in transporting us to that chamber, to watch as Han is lowered and is frozen in carbonite. And although it is an intense scene of despair, as there is no hope for rescue, it is also the apex of the love story between Han and Leia. Throughout The Empire Strikes Back, Han had been pushing the princess to admit that she had feelings for him, that there was something there between them. Realizing that this may be the last time she ever sees him, her wall of defense and self-preservation collapses, and she tells him how she truly feels, that she loves him. And Han responds with the now iconic line, the one Harrison Ford suggested, "I know." Ford felt it was a reply that suited Han's character, while being a beautiful, acceptable, and funny response. And that moment has been quoted endlessly over the decades, and has landed on the highlight reel of the greatest romance moments in film history. It wasn't enough to have one of the most iconic romantic lines, though. Empire had one of the greatest twists of all time as well. When Luke confronts Vader on Cloud City, the Dark Lord tests the boy as Yoda did, but from the opposite perspective of the Force. Vader wants to convert Luke to the dark side, But first, he wants to draw out his anger and his emotions in order to spark a hatred within him. He has Han tortured in order to bring Luke to Bespin, that the young Jedi would sense his friend's pain. And now, for the first time, he is in a duel with the face of the Empire. Vader toys with him, and at times Luke surprises him with what he knows about the Force and fighting so far. But Vader wears Luke down, eventually overpowering him and slicing off his hand with a lightsaber blow. And if that wasn't traumatic enough for viewers, Vader shocked audiences all over the world with Empire's most iconic line. When Luke tells Vader he knows the Dark Lord killed his father, Vader responds, "No, I am your father." Today, twists in movies and in series are very hard to pull off. And cinema has been so pervasive in our culture for the past century that audiences pretty much have witnessed every type of story twist on screen. However, in 1980, long before the internet and social media, the reveal that Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father became a phenomenon. It added a fresh depth and complexity to a sci-fi space fantasy, and complicated Luke's journey in a way that audiences never expected. But the film doesn't end there. Lucas, Kirshner, Kasdan, and the rest of the team give us some special parting moments. Lando comes up with a plan to take Leia, R2, 3PO, and Chewbacca to the Falcon so they can escape the planet. Boba Fett escapes with Han and Carbonite as he plans to bring him to Jabba the Hutt. Luke, wounded and clinging to a weather vane under Cloud City, reaches out through the Force to Leia, who hears him and orders Lando to fly to his location to retrieve him. The film ends on a bleak note for our heroes. But within that cliffhanger, there is a spark of hope. The medical droid 21B replaces Luke's missing hand with a mechanical one, which was a relief for me and for many other young viewers. And the rebels set into motion plans to rescue Han. Before the credits roll, we see Luke, Leia, and the droids standing by the large window of the medical frigate, watching the Millennium Falcon take off to begin Return of the Jedi's rescue mission. The final shot is one of the most beautiful ones in the trilogy, but it was a late addition to the movie, filmed 4 months after principal photography wrapped. According to Mark Hamill, quote, concerned about the downbeat ending and thorough defeat of the protagonists, Lucasfilm wanted to add an uplifting moment of hope and rejuvenation to reassure the audience. Trace Dean, a writer for the website Sci-Fi, gave his take on the success of Empire as the perfect example of a middle chapter and a cliffhanger, along with the impact of Vader's reveal. He wrote, "There are plot threads left open, sure, but the narratives set into motion in the film's first act are all resolved, albeit not the way viewers expected or even wanted. Every character's arc comes to a sensible resolution. Every narrative thread is concluded. Its greatest cliffhanger is not narrative, but existential, that being the revelation of Luke's parentage. That revelation isn't merely a plot mechanic, but a shift not only in Luke's understanding of himself, but of our understanding of everything that has come before and everything that will come to be in the world of Star Wars." And for that reason and the others I've stated in this episode, 1980's The Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars film. Really, though, I can't even begin to describe the impact that the original trilogy and the franchise has had on my life, because it played such a crucial role in shaping my imagination in those formative years. My love for it is connected to moments with my family, to watching the movies over and over, to telling my own stories through the toys, to collecting the memorabilia as an adult, to joining a community of fans and collectors, and to documenting this passionate fandom in more than 200 episodes of this podcast and sharing it with you. Thank you for taking the time to travel with me through the series. I've learned so much about my personal Star Wars fandom through ranking the first 12 Star Wars theatrical releases, which movies truly resonate with me, and which ones matter far less. And if you've never taken the time to create your own list, I'd recommend doing so. It's a worthwhile exercise, and you'll see the films and the franchise in an entirely new light. I'm looking forward to doing a new list next year, after I rewatch all 12 films, plus The Mandalorian and Grogu, and Star Wars Starfighter. So here's to celebrating our love of Star Wars through the movies. And here's to further adventures together on Star Wars, prototypes, and production.